Live streaming is on.
Hello, and welcome to the Undercurrent News webinar on adopting novel feeds in aquaculture. We're joined today by a very distinguished panel, which brings together some very established feed manufacturers in the aquaculture industry, some entrants, and also a very important investor. And so we thought we would be able to approach this topic from all angles. I'd just like to make a special mention to our sponsors on this webinar, including Panaferd AX, Menon Renewable products with Mr. Feed, and Witaya Aqua. So what I would like to do is basically just introduce everybody on the panel. And then we'll go to a brief presentation, and then we'll be very quickly on questions, stage questions, and then a Q&A panel. So I'm going to go around the group alphabetically, and we're joined by Morten of BioMBioMar. Would you introduce yourself, please, to the audience?
Hello, guys. Morten Møjbæk from BioMBioMar here. I'm the global sourcing director of BioMBioMar, and hence purchasing a lot of raw materials, and also looking into a lot of new novel raw materials and how to utilize that in aquafeed. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Morten. And now I'll go to Helene Ziv of Cargill. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Helene Ziv from Cargill. So my job is to be the risk management and sourcing director for our animal nutrition business in Cargill. That means for all our aquaculture feed business, but also for our livestock and other species businesses. And equally as Morten, we are heavily focused on sustainable new ingredients in Cargill. Our vision being to feed the world in a safe, responsible, and sustainable way. So for us, it's extremely important, this topic today, and we are very happy to join you today.
Thank you, Helen. And now I'll move to Andrew at InnovaFeed.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew. I'm the Aqua Nutrition Manager here at InnovaFeed. InnovaFeed is a leading insect producer in supplying the aquaculture industry since late 2017. My job as the Aqua Nutrition Manager is to handle our aquaculture value chains, supporting customer engagement, handling expeditions, and some product development.
Thanks, Andrew. And now to Suresh Menon.
Thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm the president and founder of Menon Renewable Products USA. We are headquartered in San Diego, California. My primary job here at Menon is to outline the strategic vision for the company, come up with a disruptive product line, focus on sustainability and traceability of ingredients to support our clients. Thank you.
Thanks, Suresh. And finally, Larsen Mettler.
Hi there, my name is Larsen Mettler. I am the managing director for S2G's Ocean Fund. We are a venture capital firm who invests throughout the food supply chain. The Ocean Fund is a $100 million fund with a long-term investment horizon, and we have a particular focus area on animal feed and animal health.
That's great, fantastic. Thanks very much. So what I'll do just to get this call set up is I will give a very brief presentation on basically on what we see so far from the perspective of Undercurrent News, and we'll get to the questions as quickly as possible, which will be far more interesting than my presentation. So I hope that everybody can see my screen, and if I can't, somebody please give me a shout from the panelists. That would be helpful. So I'm not going to spend too much time telling you what you already know. Aquaculture has grown exponentially over the last 3 decades, and it's placed a strain on the marine ingredients that were really at the genesis of this industry. So omega-3s and fish meal. And this industry is looking very aggressively at ways of adopting novel ingredients. So what we've seen to date is a lot of vegetable oil and vegetable meal replacing these marine ingredients, and we've seen the marine ingredient inclusion in some species drop to very low levels, for example, in the salmon industry. And just to give some perspective, in 2017, as part of Undercurrent News, we released a report on feed innovation. And the interesting thing, and this is just really to set the frame of this whole discussion, is in 2017, this industry was at a very, very conceptual level. Corbion and Veramaris were selling very early volumes of algal oil. And as we will discover, that's really kind of taken off. The single-cell protein space, very early stage. And the insect space as well was also very early stage. What we've seen so far, the algae space has really been perhaps the area that's made the most progress. Although, please tell me if I'm wrong during the Q&A session. But we've seen something like 25% adoption in Norway and some early entries into other species like shrimp. And one interesting fact that was supplied by BioMBioMar is they've sold something like 700,000 metric tons of feed with Corbion, which is quite remarkable. And also we're expecting a new generation of omega-rich canola oils coming into this industry, and that should be a very interesting time. Insect meal is still at an early stage, but has raised remarkable amounts of venture capital. And we've seen, and we're going to have the perspective today of Andrew Richardson with a company that has grown to build a 15,000 ton a year facility in northern France, and an agreement to build a new site in the US using agro-industrial waste that would be 4 times its size. So things are really happening there. And the single-cell proteins that are at a slightly more conceptual stage, we've seen some of these ventures around for some time. Callister has been an interesting innovator, and I've seen actually one of their pilot facilities in the UK. And it's interesting that recently they signed a deal with Adissio to build a plant in China. And also there's some other ingredients that are slightly off, not exactly on the radar of many investors in this space. But I would mention Suresh Menon, who is on this call today, with a peptide feed that can help fish health. And I'm sure he will have more to say about that. So thank you for joining. And without wishing to talk anymore, I'm going to bring us to the questions. And again, what I'll do is I'll just go alphabetically through the companies. And it just so happens that we start with BioMBioMar and Cargill for that reason. And so we're going to get the perspective of the big feed manufacturers in this industry and how they view these novel ingredients. And just a quick reminder to the audience, if you want to send questions, please do so now. We're going to get to the questions at about the half-hour mark. And we'll try and dedicate a healthy portion of this webinar for Q&A from the outside world. Okay, so with BioMBioMar, I would like to go back to that fact on my presentation, Morten, and I'm really curious to know how you guys have been so successful in adopting algal oil in Norway, how that experience has been in convincing salmon farmers. And perhaps if you could talk about some of the, as a second question, some of the pain points in doing that, and maybe where, you know, what it's like at an earlier stage for, say, chili or for other species.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Matt. Of course, I can only agree that this has been a great journey with Corbion on adoption of the algae prime in first of all, of course, we started out in Norway, but it's actually spread out to many of the other countries where we have feed mills and are selling feed. So we've had a good collaboration with Corbion. That's one thing, of course, and then I think that what we are essentially in BioMBioMar, we are cooks. We're using different nutrients to satisfy the requirements of the fish. And one of the essential nutrients that we need in the fish feed is, of course, EPA and DHA. And what we're doing together with Corbion is, of course, making another option to use. In this case, it's DHA from the product from Corbion, which can actually eliminate some of the pressure on the fish oil, which is the natural source of EPA and DHA. Of course, the natural source in the fish stocks are heavily restricted, and therefore it's also vital to be able to have an alternative here. And we have an alternative for this essential nutrient for the fish in the DHA from the algae prime. Of course, it's also through a lot of discussions with our customers in the respective countries, where an added focus on sustainability from our customers together with BioMBioMar have also made the adoption of this feasible. So that is key. A good collaboration with our suppliers, but also a very good collaboration with our customers in adopting these new products in a larger scale. It started off, of course, as you will also know, it started off very niche, but now, as you also mentioned, the figures have grown to quite large volumes, especially in Norway, and also being adopted in Chile and Denmark and other countries in the BioMBioMar world.
Right, and I think one of the interesting conversations I had with Corbion at an earlier stage was how it was quite reactive to market demand. So there was a sense that consumers really liked this product, and so the farmers very quickly responded to this by growing more and seeding more sites with this feed. So have you grown this market share in would you say more in a kind of gauging the market and reacting to it, or a more planned kind of route to adoption?
I think that it's more the latter, actually. Of course, we had this opportunity, and our customers need to be ready to adopt this, and we cannot force this upon our customers. So it needs to be both a push and a pull. We need to have the products, and our customers need to be able to adopt this. And I think that this has been a journey for us, and we've used 3 to 4 years to get to where we are now. But of course, it's a good story, and our customers see this actually taking a little bit different pathway to the final product than doing the regular fishing to get these nutrients from the sea. We do it in a more controlled way on land with the sugar as the substrate, sugarcane as substrate, and then through fermentation. So there's a whole part of the supply chain which is significantly different and built in a more sustainable way than when you take some of the fishing, of course, into consideration, where you would have the volatility in the different stocks, and this is much more stable, to be honest. It seems like you're freezing, Matt.
I can hear you okay, Morten. I think Matt has disappeared. Can you hear me okay, Morten?
Yeah, I'm fine. So really just looking for a follow-up question now.
So maybe what I can do is answer the next question that Matt had on the panel, if Matt doesn't come back. Okay, so I will do that. So hi, it's Helene from Cargill. So the question that Matt had prepared for me was about the what needs to happen for a new ingredient to be scalable. And how do we make it scalable? Here, what I would like to say, right, is that it all starts, of course, with a customer, right? So at Cargill, what we want to do is to always stay close and listen to our customers. And so what we are doing is we are taking the avenue to look at several novel ingredients, not only one, but we're looking at a panel of several novel ingredients that could fit our different customer needs. And also when we talk about sustainability, we believe it's sustainability about the environment, but also about the animal welfare. So one example of that is, for example, our dermic feed that is focusing on the skin of the salmon and the health of the salmon, helping the salmon to recover from any manipulation at sea, and that's improving significantly the welfare of the salmon at sea. And then another example, which is a bit different now, not animal welfare, but more focused on sustainability, is really about the insect protein. So we have, we're lucky today to have InnovaFeed in the panel, but at Cargill, we strongly believe in the insect protein industry, both for insect meal and insect oil. And what we believe will make the insect industry scalable is the fact that the production cost is capable of competing against its replacement ingredients, right? So one thing that's extremely important for scalability is always the cost and the capability on the technology side to expand quickly. We believe that will happen for insect. It's not the case for all the other novel ingredients we're working with. Some other novel ingredients may have more difficulties to scale up because the cycle of production may be more complex, or the cost of production may be more complex or higher. But insect for sure is one that is highly scalable. In addition, scalability needs to come also with a very strong work in anticipation around R&D. So research and development is extremely important. In Cargill, we have for aquafeed 3 big research centers in Chile, Norway, and in the US. We're spending millions of dollars every year in our research center to try to improve our understanding and expertise in novel ingredients to bring it to the doorstep of our customers. Having a strong R&D on novel ingredient is extremely important to understand the nutrition effect as well as the health effect. And once we have strong certainty around that, we can base our claim on science. And if you couple that with the right cost of production, that's when you're ready to scale up novel ingredients. Of course, partnership with customer then becomes key. So what we've been doing a lot with key customers. One of them is actually around insect meal. It's a pilot we did with Leroy and InnovaFeed, where we have started to use insect meal in the feed, and it's been received very successfully by our customer, but also by the end consumers. And that takes me to the last point. What's the additional very important factor of scalability is the adoption by the end consumers, which means you, me, anybody who goes to a supermarket or a grocery shop and buys seafood. The end consumer are more and more asking for sustainable ingredients, asking for transparency, but also having strong opinions of what works or not for them. And that's why understanding the adoption of a new ingredient and understanding if the general public and the end consumer feels good about adopting a new ingredient is very important. So we also need to focus on that. That's it for me. Thank you. I don't know if Matt is back to ask a question to the next panelist.
I think if Matt doesn't reappear, then maybe we continue in the same vein, Helen, and I kind of kick off after your answer. And I think, Matt?
Hello.
just kicking off an answer to the question that we had prearranged, Matt, which was based around feedstock for insects. To give maybe some context to this question, InnovaFeed has previously communicated on co-locations of our facilities, both in France and the future one in the US, with major agro-industrial players, and using the co-products of their existing processes to feed our insects. And the question was really focused around why did we choose to, I think, maybe Matt, if you want to step in if I'm getting it wrong, focus on those the use of those industrial co-products as opposed to maybe other waste streams. So that's.
I don't know if you can hear me. I'm back on.
Yeah, I got you there. Yeah.
Yes, we would love to get that perspective, especially flipping the scales from the perspective of somebody entering the market. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, sure. So absolutely. So the reason why we partner with these industrial players is really that primarily we are farmers, and the feedstock that we use to supply our to feed our insects is a hugely important aspect of production. We need to ensure that we're able to get a hold of a high quality feedstock that's fully traceable and also fully standardized. And one of the advantages of partnering with industrial players such as Craze in France or ADM in the US is that the feedstocks that we get from them are all three of those things. They're high quality in terms of the nutrition that they supply to our insects. They're traceable because they're already part of large-scale industrial procedures, and they're produced at a very large scale. And another advantage of partnering with an industrial player like that is that if you're getting all of these ingredients from the same place, then you only have to deal with a kind of a singular supply chain. You can co-locate with them, which brings with it certain economies, both boosting the sustainability of your supply, but also reducing the kind of the capex, making your production competitive, which as Helene spoke about, is something that is achievable with insects.
And Andrew, keen to ask, what are the pain points you've addressed in, or rather the difficulties of entering this market from the perspective of a startup? Because many of these companies that are developing new ingredients have found it quite difficult to engage with the industry and to get market share.
Yeah, sure. So insects are maybe a little bit of a unique one because there was really a watershed moment in 2017. This is when the EU legislated to allow processed animal proteins of the nature that we're discussing, insect protein, to be allowed within aquaculture value chains as an ingredient within the feedstock. And so what happened is really a large unlocking of the market and activating that market share really created the onus for a lot of these players to really ramp up their production quite quickly, which is why it's kind of it's important to know that sort of InnovaFeed started production in 2017, and really the reason is because that market opened up.
Great, thanks very much, Andrew. And I would like to move to Suresh Menon. Hope that everybody can hear me, and apologies for my internet problems. Suresh, your story reminds me of the fact that there are lots of different ways to supply this market with innovation and different kinds of products. And I was surprised to hear that your company is working in several different countries. Could you give me your perspective, please, on how you've entered this market and how that's been in terms of getting market share and working with the industry?
You might have to unmute Menon if you're not already.
Can you hear me, Matt?
I can. Yes, I can see that.
Awesome. Awesome. What I was saying is, we are definitely proud to announce that we have a product that for the first time has been utilized across multiple species to replace major ingredients. It's a functional ingredient called Mr. Feed that stands for Menon Renewable Feed. The idea, Matt, was to replicate as close as possible the fish meal profile. So we came up with taking cellulosic waste or agriculture inputs like DDGs from breweries, corn stovers, rice husks, etc., and hydrolyze them with enzymatic cocktails. And this resulted in very unique spectrum of peptides and nucleotides. And what's so unique about the peptides is that more than 50% of them are less than 1 kilodalton. And this allowed the better uptake of the material or the amino acids with improved palatability and improving the immune function of the animal. So when you enhance the immune function, the requirements of various antibiotics and treatments at the ponds, or in the case of livestock, the overall farming requirements, it goes down. And I'm very proud to announce that this product have surpassed our expectations in various species. Traceability is definitely very important because we can tell clients what we used to produce a product. The peptides are unique. We are selling in more than 15 countries. We have footprint across 15 to 30 countries where we are running some trials and so on, both in aquaculture and livestock. The growth of the company is primarily on revenues produced and profits. So we have taken in very minimal investment so far. The company is focused on a pipeline of products today that will disrupt and break every barrier, on replacing various animal proteins, plant proteins, grains, blood plasma, etc. So we are super excited about where we are. We've been reasonably quiet because we wanted to pursue the lower tier farms first, get our data in hand. After that, we went to credible third parties. Some of the largest companies in the world are using our product today. We are in the largest shrimp farm in Saudi Arabia, and that's actually the largest shrimp farm in the world. We are in farms in Indonesia that is the largest supplier of shrimp to Walmart today. We're supplying actually to BioMBioMar, who is also on this panel, to support production of snapper for Costco, and on and on. I mean, we are on the livestock side, we work very actively with companies like Tyson. In fact, since Andrew pointed out, he's correct. It's better to locate some of the parts of your production as close to your client or the incoming feedstock. So as an example for Tyson, we have proven that the waste stream from Tyson can be converted into Mr. Feed. So a lot of lessons learned over the years, Matt, in how to penetrate the market. For that, you produce a product first that is very valuable for the farmer, improving their yields and so on. And then you have to make sure that change or the disruption that we created is executable with being close to the client as well as close to the feedstock. There is a trade-off between how you execute this.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you very much, Suresh, and we'll definitely get back to you on more of this when we take questions from the outside audience. So finally, Larsen, you're entering this space with the novel ingredient space is many different types of producers. Sometimes quite hard to find data on different companies. How do you enter this space and look at it? I'm really keen to hear your view.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. We are interested in the space for all the reasons that people know. As your presentation correctly identified, that the total addressable market for this space continues to grow. I think in 2019 it was about 64 billion. It's expected to hit about 71 billion by 2025. So, as an investor, we see it as a very compelling area with huge market potential. So, as we enter it, we are looking at a number of different alternatives here, and really, we are an impact investor. So we understand that feed is a finite resource with significant impacts on fish, production costs, and the environment, and we know that when we look at this, we want to see all of the things that were already mentioned. We look for products that meet the nutritional and protein content. We see what R&D is happening with available technologies, different companies, the cost, scalability, as well as consumer acceptance. We're also keeping an eye out for any unintended consequences that need to be measured and weighed against the benefits. That could be, when you look at the shift to soy, obviously there became some deforestation issues. Things that we could see popping up here are needs for fossil fuels in production, high quality substrates, transportation costs, and increased carbon footprints, even alienating specific regions for transportation exchange rates. So that's kind of the high level of it, and they are all very capital intensive projects. So what we're trying to do is partner up with experts in the space, like folks who are on this call in the industry, as well as other private capital investors. There are people who are very experienced in this field, like Aquaspark and CreaDev, who have made investments with some of these partners. But I like the slide that you had earlier of the sheer size of these volumes. Some of these companies have raised over 400 million euros to build these projects. They're typically in the hundreds of millions. So private capital can't do it alone. We need industry involved. And I would personally like to see more government and banks entering with green bonds. Green bonds are about $200 billion that were issued in 2020. It sounds big, but it's a very small part of the global debt market. And they're being well received by investors. Movi and Grieg issued green bonds specifically around feed in 2020 and 2019 as well. They were seeking about 300 million euros, and they were 300% oversubscribed. So everyone is recognizing that there's long-term sustainability here, operational and reputational benefits.
That's great. Thanks very much. So as we're now on 26 minutes left on the call, so I'm going to quickly get into Q&A, so we've at least get one question answered per panelist. And I'm going to start with you, Morten, again, coming back to the beginning of this. There are lots of questions on cost and price and the price points at which these ingredients enter the market. And I thought that would be a good one for you because you've had so much working experience with the Corbion product. Specifically, one of the audience asked how much of volumes are added per ton. So, when you make these decisions, are you replacing algal oil with fish oil on a like-for-like basis, or using some other type of equation? But yeah, just really sort of getting into that cost area.
Without getting into all the technicalities of our recipes and formulation, I can say that we're not substituting fish oil in our recipes. So the DHA is actually from algae prime is actually an addition to the fish oil that we put in. So that is one. In relation to the cost, it's of course it's very differentiated what cost we are comparing to, because of course when you're talking about the DHA oil or the DHA from algae prime, it's competing in the recipe. Of course, we're comparing it with the likes of fish oil, which is the natural source of EPA and DHA. If we're looking at other sources of novel raw materials, for example, single cells or insect meal, it would be probably the protein part that we are evaluating. And again, there we are not just looking for protein; we're looking for the nutrients, the amino acids, and so on. So of course, it's difficult to say what kind of price point that we need to be at, because we're always looking at the nutrients in the specific raw material. So it's not an easy question to answer straight up like this in a debate like this. But it is I would. To know more about how to price a raw material, I need to know more about the composition of the different raw materials. But that is the way we do it. Of course, as I started out saying, we are chefs shuffling around with a lot of different nutrients, and of course we are pricing different nutrients on when we're comparing them with what other raw materials can actually get in the recipe with the same kind of nutrients. I don't know if that's answering the question. It
is. It's a good answer. Thanks. And you've seen this high adoption of algal oil. Are there any lessons to be learned for producers of other ingredients as to the success of that?
I think that I would actually also build a little bit on what Larsen Mettler was just saying, that to have a significant sustainability impact from raw materials is critical going forward. Of course, our customers, the major environmental footprint of their production comes from the feed and from the raw materials that goes into the feed. So the raw materials that we put into our feed needs to have a substantial sustainability contribution, and that can of course be in different areas. Right now, we're working with a company in UK called Deep Branch, which is a single cell producer of protein, actually utilizing CO2 as the substrate for the fermentation. So interesting actually to be able to consume the CO2 instead of generating CO2. So that is just a company where the sustainability impact is significant, and that is something which is critical for all future investments going forward, be it insect meal, be it other single cell proteins or the likes. That is critical for the future.
Great.
I really like the report that BioMBioMar put out, where they do talk about feed accounting for about 80% of the environmental impact in seafood production. It's very well put together.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. So I'm going to move quickly along to Helen. And I'm going to ask you a slightly different question from the audience. A lot of interest about the future of the fish meal and fish oil ingredients themselves. And do you see a future for these ingredients in the aquaculture industry, or do you see those ingredients going to other uses, for example, human supplements?
Thank you, Matt. Great question from the audience. So I think it's important to make this statement here that fish meal and fish oil is not going away from the salmon feed formula. At least in Cargill, we strongly believe in the positive nutritional and health impact of fish meal and fish oil for salmon. What has happened over the years, and that you rightfully were showing in your deck in the beginning, Matt, is that we have been substituting as much as we could with other ingredients to try to relieve the pressure on the fishery, on the oceans. Today we have quotas in most countries where fish meal and fish oil are produced, so fishing quotas that are basically capping the future production of fish meal and fish oil. At the same time, the aquaculture is growing. The feed volumes and the feed demand and the salmon productions are growing. And we're expecting in the next 10 years to have on average depending on the countries, between 3 to 8% growth in aquaculture. So when you have that, and at the same time, fish meal and fish oil are capped for environmental reasons, I think we all understand that we need to bring novel ingredients, but that these novel ingredients are not replacing or taking away fish meal and fish oil. Novel ingredients are helping aquaculture to grow in a sustainable way. novel ingredients are complementary to fish meal and fish oil that are very important for our customers and for the health and the nutrition of the salmon. And this is why it's so important, and that's why Cargill is strongly advocating and supporting all the possible novel ingredients that could scale up, right? Because we have a clear deficit of sustainable EPA, DHA, and protein to continue growing aquaculture. So we need to be very strong supporter of the novel ingredients that we believe in. And all of this, of course, links back to, okay, what are the novel ingredients that can scale up, and what are the novel ingredients that need support from venture capital, from the industrial feed producers, and from all the startups, right? And so far, we believe that algae, insect, single-cell protein, and all the other ingredients we mentioned today, they all have a bright future, considering the growth coming for aquaculture and the fact that fish meal and fish oil productions are capped. So we are engaging very strongly there. We believe it's our role as a global industrial player in the space to support novel ingredients and to help the industry, our customers, and the startups involved in novel ingredients to grow and to find ways to scale up.
That's great answer. Thank you, Helen. I've got, for InnovaFeed, for you, Andrew, I've probably got about 4 questions that would be good. And I'm going to pick one of the 4. And I'm really interested in the feedstock part of it. And we've got a question from the audience on what other types of agro-industrial waste streams you could use in your product. So you've partnered up with one of the really big ag companies and moving to the US. But could you do this in other countries and take other agri waste streams, for example, from the fruit industry or from the palm industry in Southeast Asia? Just kind of guessing here.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I think first, I think the previous 2 answers by Morten and Helene were fantastic and really exhaustive. I'll try to continue in that same vein. One of the great things about insects, and one of the ways to unlock their value, is to have a solution that is both scalable and local. And what this means is that we would foresee an instance where you have a multitude of factories sited all around the world. And what that means is you'll have to use the feedstock that's local. What that feedstock is, obviously, depends both on the geography within which you want to produce the insects, the applicability of that feedstock to insects as well, because the insects, obviously, they have a nutritional requirement and a welfare requirement that has to be met. Our feedstock also acts as the 3D medium within which our insects live. So it's a little bit different from sort of an aquafeed where you just supply the fish with feed. Our feedstock is also the home and the environment. And so we have a couple different variables which we take into consideration when testing new feed substrates from around the world as we look to kind of expand and make the solution global.
Right. Because one of the really interesting things with insects is it scores highly with nutritional value. It's very close to nature. Salmon industry loves it. The retail surveys seem to show very positive feedback. So I guess it's just that it's the cost. And I'm wondering again, and I'm sorry, I'm picking on you here a little bit, but when you choose different types of agro-industrial feedstocks, does that have a very direct impact on your cost of operation, or are we going to see technological advances that kind of alter that equation?
So one of the advantages of co-locating with an agricultural player is that actually what you're offering to them is also ways to create value for them, right? Because you're able to absorb elements of co-streams which maybe weren't being utilized in an optimized way. You're siting your location very close to their site. What this means is they don't maybe have to process those co-streams. For instance, evaporating water off them, very high energy costs, very high sustainability costs for some of these producers, so we can alleviate that. And also by siting with them, we're guaranteeing the usage of their streams for a long time. All of these factors mean that what you're able to do is negotiate a very competitive kind of price structure for feedstocks. And this really gets back to something that Helene mentioned about the kind of the competitivity of insects with other ingredients on the market and why there's such a strength behind them.
That's great. Thanks very much. And so, Suresh, I'm going to ask you curiosity from one of our listeners on what types of plant-based raw materials you use in your product before the enzymatic hydrolysis. If you could take that question, please.
Sure, that's a great question. And actually, it kind of ties back to what Andrew was also alluding to. So let me just connect that to this question, because you alluded to utilizing, palm waste, for example, in Asia, and we can go through many examples, but I'll pick that. In the palm oil business, you have a lot of waste, like effluents, for example, from the palm oil. But those are better source for minerals in our fermentation step during the enzyme production. Okay, when you take the EFB, or the empty fruit bunch of full fruit bunch, you can extract through hydrolysis a different source of sugars. Now, you have to really pick the best for your product, right? I mean, from a traceability perspective and sustainability perspective. So what we did, now to answer the question, over last 6 or 7 years, when we received the contract from Department of Defense, from the United States government, Department of Defense, we have so many isolates in our library. We produced enzymes from various substrates, from cellulosic substrates. And these enzymes are then converted into cocktails as a function of what we wish to convert. And I will come back to the enzymes now. We have lipases, we have proteases, xylenases. These are the 3 primary enzymes that we use. In the cocktails, if many of you are in the biology field, you know a PCR process quite well, where we take a template. So here, the sugar is our template, and the enzyme is in the mix. And we know exactly what to reproduce, which amino acids to reproduce. And so that amplification process is what we use to produce the peptides. As a result, we get more than 50 to 60% less than 1 kilodalton size peptides. This is extremely valuable, unlike fish meal that only has maybe 20% peptides at that scale. So these are the differentiating factors in our product. Other enzymes that we are playing with right now, it's a bit under the wrap, but we're coming up with other product lines to enable this process.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Larsen, I'm going to give you a question, which we have a question, which is sustainability a criterion that is included in investment procurement policy? And how do you see the substantiation of sustainability and performance claims of novel aquafeed ingredients? I kind of know that S2G it's at the forefront of your mind, sustainability questions, but just keen to see how you evaluate it in a granular way.
Sure. So at every investment that we make goes before an investment committee, actually 3 of them. When we go through this process, we do have to quantify what the impact is. That impact measurement can vary by, obviously by by company and by initiative that we're looking at. For feed, it's certainly a number of things. Things that I mentioned earlier, whether it's a carbon footprint offset, relief on pressure on wild stock fisheries. It could be human rights and deforestation. So it does vary widely depending on each one there. And when we sit down with companies, we do try to understand what their metrics are and what their goals are for the long-term planning.
That's great. Thank you very much. I'm going to do a couple more. So we're on 9 minutes left. I am going to pick a couple of questions and anybody can answer. And I'm going to be indulgent because I have a question from Umberto Spaziani, who's the former CEO of PASA. I've had great conversations with Umberto in Lima, and I hope you don't mind me naming you. But your question is, what is the future of fish meal and fish oil in the composition of feed for carnivorous species, so salmon and shrimp? That's kind of for anybody to answer, whoever fancies taking that question.
I think Morten here from BioMBioMar. I think that Helen has already answered that on the aquaculture side. I think that of course fish meal and fish oil are great nutrients into the feed that we're producing. Of course, they have to come from sustainable sources. And of course, as we see the growth in the industry, we cannot consume the same or include the same kind of percentages in our feed recipes as we have done before. But I still see a future where we're using these very good raw materials if they are sourced in a sustainable way. I think that we will still be using those in the future.
That's great. That's great. And also, there's one question that as aquaculture growth becomes more efficient, perhaps less fish meal is needed. Any thoughts on that? And I guess I'm going to kind of add to that question a little bit, where will we see some other way in which the feed manufacturers can use less marine ingredients, or are we just looking for like replacements?
Are you asking Morten or myself?
This is to the general audience. Yeah. So Helen, if you have a go ahead.
Yeah, I think over the years, if you look at the percentage of inclusion over the years, we've been reducing significantly fish meal and fish oil in the salmon feed, replacing it with vegetable protein. And depending on the country, in Chile with other animal protein, and in Europe only with vegetable protein. We're getting to a point where we're very close to we believe, very close to the minimum of the inclusion of fish meal and fish oil in the formula today. So in order to respect the needs of the animals from a nutrition and health standpoint. So we don't think that when aquaculture becomes more efficient that we will put less fish meal. We think in percentage we're very close to the minimum. But what we will be able to do is to bring other types of animal protein that are sustainable and that are safe for the animal and for the environment. I think we also need to become creative. The end consumers and our customers, the farmers, they want new solutions. They want new solutions that are sustainable and that are good for the health of the animal and for the environment. And this is why we need to spend a lot of time and efforts in R&D, which is why we're investing millions of dollars every year in that, because this has to come in the beginning from R&D. This has to come from thinking out of the box and being creative on the next ingredient opportunity. But really, to answer your question, I think we need to keep a minimum of fish meal and fish oil in the feed for nutritional and health benefits.
Sure. And Helen, actually, I was just very keen to ask you, if you look across the space, are there certain novel ingredients that you think are really interesting to look at more than others based on the R&D work that Cargill's done so far? Is there anything that really stands out as being a huge kind of potential for the future?
Yes, we believe insect has the highest potential. Insect has the highest potential from an R&D, nutrition and health impact, and also from a scalability point of view.
Wow, that's a really interesting answer. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to, I think, Suresh, if I'm not mistaken, you may have an answer for the same question.
Yes, I was raising my hand. I didn't want to interrupt Helene answer.
No, yeah.
Basically, what we have achieved, and Helene is absolutely right. You know, we notice clients dropping the amount of fish meal. We have products, as you know, that replaces 100% of the fish meal, and regardless of the species, whether it's salmon, trout, snapper, shrimp, etc. We've already achieved that. We've already done this. We've broken the barriers of using fish meal. Now, the key is the cost for us. And I noticed a question from our friends at Ziegler as well. We work with Ziegler as well. And, you know, we have formulators, 30+ years experience, each of them, who can give you examples on how to utilize our ingredient with open formulations. So clients will know exactly what goes into the diet. That, I think, is most important, is that the formulations are open sourced, and that is what we drive from our side. When you source fish meal, there is variability of 5 to 10% in proteins, ash, whatever, you know, bone, whatever, it doesn't matter. With our product, you get less than 1% variability. So it's a dream come true for the formulator. So they can pick and choose which ingredient they wish to replace. So these are the differentiators, but this is what we are disrupting in the market. As far as scale is concerned, yes, insect meal is definitely, you know, well funded, much better funded than companies like ours. If you look at it, you know, apples to apples, I mean, the single cell protein space, people are scaling up very fast. And I feel that, you know, once they overcome the inefficiencies in production with equipment and such, you'll see a huge thrust from that side. On our side, because we are in the peptide business, we are able to scale much faster because we are replicating against a template. So we are already supporting today, our capacity can support 300,000 to 1 million tons of feed. We are already at that scale. And we are already working with some of the biggest companies in the world. I think that if insect meal, for example, can start using substrates like our product, I think that'll enable the scale up even faster, in my opinion, because we are already using the cellulosic materials and the waste efficiently to produce our product. And this can then go to insect meal, so they can produce their material as well. So this is my perspective.
That's great. Thank you. And as we're on 1 minute left, I'm going to very quickly allow Larsen to have the final word. And how do you wade into this debate and look at insects versus other ingredients, and perhaps, you know, validating the fact that insects see so much venture capital entering the space, and what do you think works in that space, and what do you think you need to see in terms of the investment criteria to get involved?
Mm-hmm. Sure, thanks. Yeah, so we are still relatively new to this space, and we have a lot to learn. I think that's probably true for most venture capitalists wading in here. So again, partnering with industry to get our knowledge up the curve here is important. For us, we do see a lot of the winners in this space emerging by being able not only to meet or exceed the protein nutritional content of the actual, you know, established feed ingredients, but cost does come into play. I think that ultimately the consumer will be a huge driver here, and that's both, you know, like Helen was saying, by their own acceptance on what are those inputs and what is the sustainability on them, but also by cost. So we want to see products that can scale and products that are sustainable here.
That's fantastic. And with that, I'm going to wrap up the webinar. And I would like to really thank our panelists. I thought we got into a really interesting debate on this subject. I'm delighted we did that. Apology for my internet connections from southern Chile. Normally it's great. And I just once again like to thank our sponsors. And would like to wish everybody a great festive season, and look out for more webinars from Undercurrent News. And again, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.